guys, welcome back to Keeping Up with Kiana and welcome back to another video. If you guys are new here to my channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. As you guys can see by the title, today I'm going to be talking all about my experience living in Los Angeles, California, the pros, the cons, what I like and what I don't like living here in Los Angeles. So if you guys are interested in hearing more, keep watching. Alright, so before we go ahead and dive into the pros and cons of living in LA, I wanted to provide you guys with a little bit of context of where I lived before. So I am originally from Lansing, Michigan, lived there up until high school. After high school, I moved to Houston, Texas, where I lived for about 4 years. I lived in Texas and I went to college. After college, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, which is where I lived for about a good 3 years. And then while we were living in Atlanta, my husband was offered a job opportunity, and that is what caused us to move here to Los Angeles. So we've been here for about a year and a couple of months now. We moved in February of 2022. So we've been here just over a year. And honestly, for us, LA really was not necessarily like on our radar. We loved living in Atlanta. We planned to like eventually move back. And initially the goal was for us to kind of like settle down in Atlanta, but like I mentioned previously, my husband was offered a job opportunity, and at the time it just seemed to pretty much work out for us. Our lease was getting ready to wrap up. You know, we don't have any kids or anything, so we're able to be pretty flexible, and honestly it was just kind of an opportunity of like, why not try something new in this season and move to LA. And honestly, I can say overall it has been a pretty interesting and fun experience living here in LA. Never really imagined what it would be like to live in Los Angeles. Like, I just figured, of course you see it a lot in like movies and television shows, so really that's all I kind of had to like base it off of as well. Before we did make our official move here, we did come out here to kind of like tour some apartments and really kind of just get our eyes on where we would be living, see like the apartments in person and just kind of see what they had to offer. So if you guys are interested in seeing what apartments we toured, I will link that above as well and down below in the description box. So getting into some of the pros of why I enjoy living here in Los Angeles. One, the weather. Like I said, I've kind of lived all over, so grew up in snow, which really not that big of a fan of. And then going to Houston where, you know, of course it was mainly like hotter weather. We didn't really experience like much snow or anything. And then also the same thing with Atlanta, you know, of course more warmer weathers. Atlanta, I did get a little bit more of like the concept of like the 4 seasons, but like minus the snow. Like of course we still had fall, spring, it would rain a lot. Summer, of course, you know, nice and hot, and then the winters would just be a little bit more cooler than usual than what I was used to in Houston. What I love here about living in LA is that the weather is pretty much the same all the time. Now I will say as of lately, it has been like raining a lot. It has been like a little cold lately. Like it snowed recently, not that long ago, which was kind of weird, but for the most part, we get pretty good weather here in LA. I would say overall on a typical regular day, it's probably 70s, clear skies, like literally just perfect weather. And I can say it's pretty much been like that year round. Like I said, now we just recently began getting like a little bit of like more rain and more of the cold weather, but for the most part, it is definitely 60s and 70s year round, which I personally love. Like for us, when we first moved here, I would say it did not rain for like the first 3 to 4 months, honestly. And to me, that just seemed like such a foreign concept, especially coming from Atlanta where it rains pretty much every day. But the weather has definitely been a great bonus here of living in LA. For me personally, like when the sun is out, like it just makes my mood better, it makes me feel better, it makes me want to be active and like get out the house. So that has definitely been a plus in living here in Los Angeles. Another thing that I like about living here in Los Angeles is that it is a melting pot of so many different cultures. I thought I experienced living in a diverse city by living in Houston, which I would say Houston is still very diverse. Atlanta, kind of not so much. It was more so like a large Black population. But what I can say here in Los Angeles, it is definitely a melting pot of all kinds of cultures. And it's actually kind of like segregated as far as like the communities, and they have like ethnic towns. Like they have a Koreatown, they have a Chinatown, they have an Ethiopia town. Like every community pretty much has its own place to kind of like hang out, which I think is pretty cool. It's really just a huge melting pot of tons of different cultures, which I really enjoyed because you meet all kinds of people from all across the world. And you get to experience different cultures. That's another thing that I will say as well, kind of segueing into like another topic as far as the food here in LA. I personally thought when moving here, I thought everyone was going to be like vegan and there was going to be like a lot of vegetarian restaurants, and I wasn't really going to find many like good food options. And I can say like, yes, that is still true. LA is definitely still a hub for like vegetarians and vegans and, you know, the plant-based lifestyle. But outside of that, because it is such a big melting pot, you have the opportunity to try food from all over the world, honestly. Like, of course, there's gonna be tons of like taco truck. I mentioned earlier, there's a Koreatown, there's a Chinatown. So you're gonna have tons of options there in those towns. There are so many options when it comes to food. Also too, I guess, just staying on the topic of food, there's always like markets, and that street food is really popular here. So you'll find a taco truck pretty much on every street, or a taco stand, I guess, a taco truck as well, but really a taco stand. But I would say overall, LA is a really diverse city with a bunch of different cultures within. Another thing that I like about living in LA is that there is always something to do. Because it's such a big city, it offers so much in the city to do, whether that's like amusement parks. They have Disneyland here. LA is also home to like Universal Studios. LA is home to a lot of like big production companies, so like Warner Brothers, Paramount Studios, which means like a lot of opportunities for like TV and film industry. Of course, you have like the nature aspect, so you can go to beaches, which for me personally was something new that I was able to experience. I've never really lived in a city where, you know, you can kind of just go to the beach and it's 20 minutes away. So that part has been great. Also having the ability to like go hiking and stuff. There's mountains here in LA, so there's tons of opportunity to like hike, tons of opportunity to like go on different trails. Nature really adds to it as well. Also, LA has a lot of like great museums. We've been to quite a few museums, and even there's still a lot more that we still have not gone to, but I hear that the museums out here are definitely some of the best. There's always markets, so if you're a foodie like myself, there's always opportunities to eat and like try new food. There's a handful of markets that I know of that happen weekly, so that's always something to do. And then also too, with like LA being the home of, I guess, like the stars, or like being really big on like the entertainment industry, there's a lot of opportunities to like attend, you know, award shows, to attend tapings of shows, really just a lot of opportunities to get out and just see a lot of different things. And then of course as well, you have like the tourist attractions like the Hollywood Walk of Fame. You have the Griffith Observatory where you can go and hike to the Hollywood sign. It's like literally just all kinds of things to do. Like you will literally never be bored in LA because there is always something going on. So that's something that I definitely love about living out here. Just in combination with the weather and then always finding things to do. You will always be outside here in LA if that's your thing, and there is literally something here for everyone. So you would definitely have a good time living out here. Also, because LA is so big and just a populous city, LA is home to many like hubs and major companies. So for the job market, I guess it would present a lot of opportunities. So out here we have like Amazon. I know, again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of film and television studios are out here. So you have Warner Brothers, I believe Cartoon Network is headquartered out here. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook is headquartered out here. So LA is pretty much home to a lot of those big companies that you hear, see about, or utilize on your regular day-to-day basis, which is good for the job market because that means that your opportunities are pretty much limitless. And also, while I'm on the topic of the job market, I can also say too that while living out here and working out here, your salary is going to be a little bit higher compared to in other parts of the US. And that is because the cost of living is more expensive out here. It kind of has to like balance out as far as what you're making here, so that way you can afford to kind of live out here. Another thing that I like about living here in LA is that there's so many different options of where you can live. The city just offers so much. Like for me, when people ask like, hey, where's a good place for me to live in LA? And I really always say like, it's really based off of your personality. If you want like the city life and like the walkability of everything, you can live downtown. If you want to live near the beach, you can live in like Long Beach or Santa Monica. If you want to be near like touristy places, you can live in like Hollywood and like have that experience of walking outside and seeing the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Like, LA just offers so much as far as living, and there's just so many different options of like where you would live and what style of living you would live in as well. I would say overall, those are all of the pros of living in LA. LA definitely has a ton to offer and really can be tailored for any person. So now onto some of the cons of living here in Los Angeles. So one, I would say, which I think is kind of expected, I think, you know, LA kind of already has like a reputation for like pretty much bad traffic. And honestly, I think that comes with any big city. And luckily for me, because I've lived in other large cities like Houston or Atlanta, I'm kind of used to having traffic be a thing in the city. So if that's something you're against, definitely keep that in mind when thinking about moving here to LA. Another thing that I feel like is talked about a lot, but of course I have to put on my cons list, is the cost of living. As you guys know, LA is very expensive, and it's expensive because of the experience that you get. I would have to say you do get to experience a lot here, and I just think that kind of goes into play of why the cost of living is so high. And then also too, as far as like the cost of living, just as an example, so in Atlanta we had a 2-bedroom and we were paying half of what we're paying here in LA. LA, we currently have a 1-bedroom, which again, more so for the experience. And of course, again, the cost of living is just going to be higher out here. But just to kind of like put that into perspective as far as like what it would look like if you decided to move out here. One thing I can say is that when we came out here initially to look for apartments, I thought that like LA was going to be very similar to New York as far as like housing. Like, I thought it was going to be expensive and then you get a little bit for your butt. And I can say that like, yes, the cost of living is a little bit higher out here, but you do get an average amount of space for your money, which is better, you know, compared to like cities like New York where you're paying a lot and then you're really not getting a lot either in space. So that also, you know, is a pro and a con in itself. Another con that I would say about living here in Los Angeles, even though I mentioned it earlier as a pro, it could also be a con as well, is the weather. So yes, we do have mostly sunny days and most of the time it's in its 60s and 70s, but also we do experience like earthquakes and tornadoes and wildfires and just really different like natural disasters, which for me is a completely new thing, especially coming from Michigan. We really didn't have much outside of a snow day. And the first time that I personally experienced a natural disaster was in Houston, and that was a hurricane, which was also pretty scary. But that is also something to definitely keep in mind. And I know recently we had an earthquake, which thankfully I don't think I felt. It happened in the middle of the night, so I think I just ended up staying asleep. But I know that one definitely did happen recently, which, you know, can be scary if that's something that you've never experienced before. Natural disasters are just going to be a thing out here on the West Coast. Another con to living in LA, which I also think is talked about often, would be the homeless population. There's actually a community of homeless people here. They're located in Skid Row, which is pretty much like, I want to say about a good 10 blocks of like just vacant like streets where homeless people kind of go and live. It's a very sad thing, but it's definitely something to keep in mind when you're looking for a place to stay in LA, just because that is kind of like a thing. And honestly, it's really across the entire city. Like, I've seen homeless people in Beverly Hills, and I've seen, you know, been to Skid Row myself and has seen what it looks like. So it's definitely a sad thing, but definitely just something to kind of keep in mind when moving out here and when figuring out a location of where you want to stay. Another con, personally for me, of living in Los Angeles is that one, we are a 3-hour time difference from pretty much the rest of the US. So for me, it's been kind of hard, you know, connecting with like family and friends. You kind of have to like set a time to schedule to call, just because it's like when you get off work and things to call your family, they're sleeping. So that's also something to keep in mind. And also with us having a 3-hour time difference, also when it comes to traveling, I know we travel a lot to go see our family and friends in Michigan, Houston, and Atlanta. And for us, most of those flights are a minimum of like 4 hours, really in between 4 to 5 hours. So that's kind of been a bit of a bummer as well, because no one wants to get on a flight and go 4 to 5 hours on a flight just to go see family and friends. And then also too, with, you know, being a little bit further out, of course your flights are going to be a little bit more expensive. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I do enjoy being on the West Coast, and it does feel like a completely different world, especially with the time difference. Like, it just feels like we're in our own world over here on the West Coast. Like, we're just so behind from everything else that's going on in the rest of the US. But definitely something to keep in mind. Not really a heavy con, but if you don't like to travel or don't like to be on planes for a long time, or, you know, if you like to road trip and your family is far, that's pretty much just kind of something to keep in mind. Another con that I dislike about living here in LA, which is something that I had to find out the hard way, but living in a big city overall, to me, LA is just very dirty. And by that, I mean like the air pollution and also the water. And then of course, I guess actually the streets as well, depending on where you live. But we've had a hard time here with the water and just kind of like our bodies getting adjusted to like the weather and just the climate and the air pollution. Like for me personally, I grew up having like eczema. But for the most part, I was able to control it, you know, simply just kind of like lotion up or put on like a cream or an ointment, and I would pretty much be fine. But I found here that living in LA, one, the water is extremely hard. So that means like there's a lot of chemicals and stuff in the water, which has been damaging to like my skin and my hair. Like I said, I do have eczema, and here it's really kind of flared up a lot. And I really kind of had to like go to doctors and stuff and like find treatment. Just to kind of like better manage it while I'm out here. And then also as well, the air pollution. As you guys know, LA is one of the most polluted cities in the US. So that's also just something to keep in mind. Of course, some of these things can be fixed to an extent. Like for us, we have a water filter in our shower just to kind of help with like the hard chemicals and everything. So definitely just something to keep in mind if you're interested in moving here. So probably one of the last things that I dislike about living here in LA, it has a very busy culture. And by that, I mean that one, as far as the people, so what I found here is that I've had a hard time kind of connecting with like the community and like the culture of LA, just because a lot of people are just extremely busy. And by busy, I mean, one, when you're walking down the streets of LA, you're not really gonna engage much with many people. And when you do engage with people, a lot of the times it's going to be pretty much resume based. Like a lot of people out here are here pretty much for the grind, you know. Everyone's out here trying to be someone, which I think is great. But it definitely just has a busy culture where, you know, you're not really finding those authentic relationships or connecting with people genuinely, just because people are looking to see how can they use you to get to where they need to go, basically. And everyone is really just so focused on like the hustle of it all and focus on, you know, I guess getting to the top. Another con with living in Los Angeles is that because it is such a big city, and as any other big city, you are going to have a lot of issues with crime. I personally, thankfully, have not experienced any major like crime activities, but I know for sure that that definitely is a thing out here. So that's also something you'll want to keep in mind. So again, just make sure you really do your research before deciding on where you want to stay, and just kind of keep that in mind as you're looking for different places to stay. So for me overall, those would be all of my pros and cons of living in LA. I would say overall, it's really been such a great city to live in, of course minus the cons. But even with the cons, you kind of just learn how to like live with them, how to navigate around it, or how to just kind of make it work for you. I've been exposed to so many different cultures, so many different kinds of people, and just so many different opportunities to get out and explore and find new things that I like to do. So hopefully this video helps you if you're interested in moving to Los Angeles. If you guys would like more videos like this, comment down below and let me know. If you guys have any specific questions that I did not answer, please let me know and I will happily answer them down below in the comments. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully this helps you if you are interested in moving to LA. And if you're just curious and wanted to know what life is like in LA, hopefully this helps as well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with someone that is interested in moving to LA. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!